In this podcast, I had the privilege of interviewing Scott Howell. He is the owner of Iron Sights Podcast, also the owner of a gym in, I guess, Central California. He's been in the fitness industry for years and years and years. Had a great conversation just about life in general, about his recent trip over in Korea and in Japan. Talked about fitness and health, politics. Not so much about politics, maybe, if anything, the anti-politic conversation, I guess we could say. But we just have a lot in common, and he's so easy to talk to. The podcast I looked up, and it was at an hour and 50 minutes. I was completely shocked that we had talked for that long. But just a great dude in general. Loves law enforcement, has good empathy for the first responder world, and a fitness guru. So it was a great podcast. I love talking to him. If you get an opportunity to check out his podcast, I was on his podcast probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. But that's how I met him, and just an awesome man. Great to have a conversation with. Let me know what you think.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country. Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
It's good. I got no complaints, man. How about everything with you?
Yeah, it's been good. Been super busy. I just got off a 2-week break with the family. We've never left the gym or the business for 2 weeks at a time. And Cece was actually gone for 3 weeks, but we did Korea and Japan, which was
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a very cool experience. I've never been to Asia. I don't do much traveling outside the country anyway, so it was cool to get out there, see some new stuff, experience some different stuff. I learned a lot. Dug into the history, like in the culture, quite a bit while I was there, to just kind of learn what the other side of the world operates like. It was cool. The jet lag though, bro.
What was that flight like?
Well, the flight over, so I went to Korea to start, and that's like, first off, you're like against the jet stream, and however, physics and avionics work there. Gotcha. So it was like 11, just over 11 getting there, and then we hopped over to Japan. And then, so coming back, you're a little closer. Plus, you get the help with the wind, so it's like 9 hours coming back. But you're 16 hours in front. So we left there. We left Japan Wednesday at 4 p.m. and we were right back here to California at 10 a.m. on the same day. That's wild.
That is wild,
dude. My body and brain is just not. It hasn't adjusted. And we got back last Wednesday, so it's been a week, and I'm still a disaster. It's been hard, but it was a great trip. Yeah.
Me and the wife went to Ireland, and that was kind of, I think it's only 6 hours of a difference, so it's not as bad, but like it's still like when we left, what did we leave? Like 4 p.m. here. We landed like 4 a.m. there, and it was supposed to be 6 a.m. there, and it like kind of just fucked up the whole day because like there's nothing open at 4 a.m. Yeah, like I just lived off of their life. So like that first day was miserable. We kind of just lived off their life. Like we just stayed up for like 24 plus hours, and then like went to bed at like 5 or 7 p.m. Slept for like 12 hours, and then kind of like our body kind of adjusted at that point. But I couldn't imagine a 16 hour difference.
Dude, I tried to do all the things.
Yeah.
Like I didn't sleep going, so that when I got there, because I finally got in at like whatever it was, 10 p.m. their time when I left. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to bed and I'll sleep. And I was tired and I slept, but then I was still up at like 3 a.m. and which is weird. Like, so I was up, and then I never adjusted. It took me like 4 or 5 days to actually feel like a normal human being once I was there. And then right about the time I'm settling in, like, okay, we're good. And the chick just had like the tightest, craziest itinerary. She was running us ragged. It's like 25,000 steps a day, like 18 sights to see, and all that stuff. And long story short, it was a busy trip. Then coming back, dude, I tried. Like like when I got there, like I woke up at 3 a.m. that first night. I'm like, okay, as soon as the sun comes up, I'm going downstairs. I'm gonna go outside, try to get some sun, reset this rhythm, make sure I'm hydrated and eating. None of it worked, dude. That was a disaster. Yeah. So anyways,
that's we did something like that was itinerary based too, and then like there was a couple days that we were just like, we're just not gonna do that. Like we already paid for it. Like we're just gonna like hang out in this town, and we'll meet up with you guys when you come back. Like we don't want to do all this shit like Just
That's
couldn't
my
do it all.
style.
Yeah.
That's my style. Like there was no having that. This was her trip. She was actually born in Korea and adopted here. At like 3 months old, so she'd never been, and this was like on her bucket list. She turned 50 this year, and she's like, look, by the time my 50th year is over, I want to visit and at least see this place. It's like, yeah, babe, I'm all in. You plan the trip, I'm there. Oh, dude, she the itinerary on it. I never need to see another Buddhist temple for as long as I live. I've seen a million of them now. They're very interesting, but I'm over them, and I never need to eat another bowl of ramen, because that's just what everything is in both places. And it was fun, but like, it's really good to be back.
Were you able to work out at all that while you're there?
Great question. So first off, I felt like ass. So that prevented me like the first few days. And then we were also on the move, and Cece she had been doing that. She'd been going in. But gym life over there is weird, bro. It's weird. The gyms are very, very small. Everything is small. It's all compact. So they got like way too much equipment and space. It's very claustrophobic. There's weird rules. Like there's customs and stuff like that. So there's very little weight. Like there's not like a lot of weights to lift. There's a lot of machines, a lot of cardio. And like very little of the stuff that you or I would use if we were going into the gym to lift, probably. Right. And then the crowd that's in there is interesting. They just have a different connection with fitness. But you got to you can't wear your own shoes. Like you either got to go shoeless or wear like their shoes, which they give you, which is weird. Like there's dress codes. Like in Japan, there's like no tattoos. Like you can't have an exposed tattoo. There's like women's only stuff. It's just kind of wacky. It was kind of weird. So to answer your question, dude, I didn't work out the entire time. I am so fucking sore. I had my first workout in like 2 days ago, and I'm dying right now. And it's good to get that going again. But she went. I walked in one day to do it, and I looked around, and I was just like, with all the stuff going on, I'm like, nope, I can't do it. Not feeling it. I'm out of here. Like, I'll just count the walking as exercise for this time. Probably good to be off, recover some joints and stuff. But
yeah, that's what I say. It's kind of weird though, like that, because you just look at both those countries and they seem to be like thin and healthy, and they walk a lot, and so to have just more cardio machines in a gym seems like, I don't know. In my mind, you just go walk more. I guess I don't know.
It's weird that way. They're such a small people. Right, like they're just small in stature, small skeletons, very little muscle mass. They don't eat very much, which was a challenge for me. Like just getting enough food, and particularly protein. Getting protein there is hard. I mean, you can go to like the Korean barbecue type places, right, where they're making it there on the table, but what they bring you is not very much. So I was like struggling, like I need extra this, bring that, like, and we weren't eating as frequent. Like I'd typically eat at least 4 times a day, right, and I'm chasing a shakedown at some point. Or whatever, at least 4. Dude, we were eating maybe 3, and the way it operates there is like you're just not getting very much. They eat very little at a time. It was a real challenge for me. So I'm like, the reason you guys are so damn small is because you don't freaking eat. Like you need to eat more. But to your point, very healthy. Like Japan was like the healthiest nation in the world, by like per capita, and we had gone to Disney. They have a Disneyland over there in Tokyo. We were in Tokyo, and they also had like Disney Sea, which is kind of their second theme park, and we'd gone there. I've been to Disneyland here in California 7,000 times, and when you go there, it's like a really interesting cross section of America and the world. Not one motorized scooter, not one family with a bunch of fat kids, like no unhealthy people. It's stark difference, and you just look at it, you go like, these people really have a better handle on diet, nutrition. I mean, the food quality is very good. It's just there's not a lot of it. And there's a lot of regulation around, substances that get put in food and things like that. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And they don't cook is another thing, because they don't cook. They eat out, or they get stuff that's already pre-made. So there's food everywhere to get. It's just not a lot of it. But their houses and their apartments and things are so small. I think they're trying to, they just don't have a lot of room. That was a challenge for me too. Very claustrophobic. Anyways, there's
what about culture things that I've read about, and I don't know if it's true or not, but like in Japan, like if kids wear yellow shirts to school or something like that, it's very community oriented, and like the yellow shirt means that they need help and guidance, like to get on the bus. They don't know exactly where they're going. Any was that present, like the community environment at all?
So interesting you asked that. Nobody's asked me that yet. So that I didn't see, or if I don't think I noticed that, but there were like, here's what I can tell you. So we rode a lot of subways. First off, like in Japan and Korea, there's not a garbage can on the street to be found. You will not find a garbage can. So if you have trash, you need to take it back to your, wherever you came from. You got to put it in the trash can, the small trash can that you're provided. At the same time, there's not a scrap of garbage on the street. And that might be embellishing a little bit. You'll find something, but it's a very clean city. There's no graffiti. There's no trash. There's no homeless people. It's in both countries. It's very, very, very clean. And they're different, but similar in that sense. Japan, very clean. Tokyo feels like New York City on steroids. And it's super clean. The subways, and that's where the kids come in, is like the train system there is super efficient, and the kids ride those things to school. So like at the end of the day, the kids are like, dude, you're talking like 5-year-olds, like kindergartners are getting themselves on and off the subway, totally safe. It's very clean, like clearly normal, for people, for kids to commute like that. But they're all wearing uniforms and their little hats. Like you got kids, right?
No kids, nope.
Oh, you don't have kids. Sorry.
Mm.
There was a movie that came out called Up several years ago. I think it was like a Pixar movie or whatever. And it's an Asian kid in there. I think he's kind of a little Asian fat kid, and he wears like a school uniform with this little hat. Well, all these kids were wearing that same stuff and whatever. But the other thing, like masks, like in America, like I live in Silicon Valley, people are still wearing freaking masks. It's the weirdest thing ever. But you go there, and they seem to have a much better handle on all that stuff. And I was asking Cece, because she had dug into it. It's like, well, the reason people wear masks here is it's almost quite the opposite. It's like if they are sick, they put on a mask as a means to be polite. So if they know they've got a cough or something, or a cold or whatever, they put on a mask as to protect their neighbors, or their community. Or like culturally, I guess the kids do this. Like, and it's kind of a sign of like, I don't want to be talked to. I want to be left alone, just like I'm in my own little world in that world. And that's kind of recognized. Or for the women, particularly like in Korea and Japan, dude, both places, fashion is a thing, particularly in Japan. Interesting. Like all the younger girls are dressed up like dolls. It's like the emo, like anime is what it looks like.
Oh, interesting.
It's very interesting. And having said that, like the hair and the makeup thing is like skincare is like Korea nobody in the world does skincare like Korea, apparently. Like people travel from all over the world and get their products from that place. It's a big deal. So the women, if they're wearing masks, will do that so that they don't have to put the makeup on, sort of as like a like a hijab or a veil, to kind of cover up. Yep. So, and that's why they're doing that. It's not like a fear of getting sick. It's like a personal thing, and it's kind of communicating to the people around them where they might be. And so people respect that. And that's just how it operates. That was interesting. Way different than here, and super polite, the friendliest people ever, super polite, very respectful. Interesting. Because I live in an area where we have a very large mix, tons of Chinese, lots of Koreans, Japanese are mixed in there, tons of Indians, East Indians, and then any number of other things. And it was interesting to see like what my perception of what I would see there in terms culturally based on my experiences here, and recognizing the difference between how Chinese operate versus Japanese or Koreans operate. There's a very clear distinction to me now. Like now I get it. So now when I walk outside, there's not I'm not generalizing it's Asian. Now I'm like, when I see a behavior or I see something happen just in the last few days since I've been home, I'm like, that looks very Japanese to me, or that looks very Korean to me, or that's clearly Chinese, because I'm surrounded by them all the time. And it's different just in terms of how they operate socially or in public or whatever else. It was educational.
Are you tired of law enforcement training that overpromises and underdelivers? I think we all are. Here at Justice Academy, myself, Mike Brazil, Heather Gloglich, try to provide as much value as possible for a feasible price. All of us are practitioners of what we preach. Mike, practicing attorney, still in law enforcement. Heather's in the command staff, still in law enforcement. I work interdiction, still in law enforcement. And these are the only topics that we teach. We don't try to branch out and be something that we're not. It's coming from the heart because we want to make this profession better. Do you think the culture is coming over with them to this country, where the politeness, the no littering, and then as they get Americanized, they fall into like our standards?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw this or not, but like World Cup was happening, right? And Japan and Korea got bumped out like immediately, and there was a huge like uprising about this. Like there was a lot of hate. It was basically like the vets coming back from Vietnam when they came back. Like they've been getting hate.
I did see that. Yep.
Japan, opposite. They got eliminated early, but they were all welcomed back. Like, thanks for putting on a good show. Like, you guys worked really hard. We love you guys, kind of thing. The exact opposite. But the Japanese here were cleaning up the stadiums post game, picking up trash at the stadiums. Like they're unsolicited, like they were just all walking around cleaning up. There was a picture of a locker room, World Cup locker room that Japan had been occupying. And in the end, you've seen like end of game locker rooms, there's freaking cups and tape and shit everywhere. These guys left the place cleaner than they found it. They folded all the pennies and jerseys and stuff that belonged to FIFA. They folded them and stacked them, and like the towels were restocked and all this stuff. Like, that culture I think comes over, but I don't know what China's like, and I don't know what India's like in terms of being there, but I know how those two cultures very, very specifically function here, and they're definitely bringing their culture here. And I don't have a lot of, I can't really compare or contrast, but if I'm being honest, there's very little awareness of personal space, of volume when you're in public places, or just, waiting in lines, like traffic, like what's appropriate and what isn't. The Indian culture that I saw, the little Indian culture that I did see in Japan while I was there, that was like at the parks or out just being tourists, functioned very much the same way there as they were functioning here. And I just got to say, it's a little rude. I just, if I'm being honest, it's kids are running amok. It's total lack of social awareness about the people around you, how you're impacting them, whether it be like in a restaurant or on a train, or, just out in public in a very crowded shopping area or something like that. It was, so they're definitely bringing it here.
Yeah, we don't have a large Indian population near me, so I don't know a lot about them in general, but the things that I do see, like the driving, you even look at some of the ones that were driving the semis and that caused accidents, because it's like, I'm assuming, because I've been to like some other countries where it's just basically the big vehicle wins no matter what. Like, so, like, I almost wonder if it's not intentional. It's just that's their culture that they're used to, and then they come here. It's like, well, you should stop for me because I'm bigger. Like, I don't know if that's how it is or what.
It's dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, like, you think about that and you go, like, what is this? Is this culture, or is this complete lack of awareness in general, or complete lack of care, or whatever else? And I think it's probably a little bit of everything. But at the same time, like, like from the Indian like culture perspective, I don't think there's another place in the United States like it is where I live, in the Silicon Valley. I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty confident in saying that. And I'm like, my neighborhood is, so I live in like a duplex, townhome type deal. Yeah. And they're pretty close to one another. Dude, there are 6 adults living in a 3-bedroom apartment duplex thing next to me. And the way they operate and the way they function is completely, they're coming in and out at all hours. They'll stand out in their, which, our doors are right next to one another. They'll stand out of there and they'll talk to whoever they're talking to in India at 3 a.m. at the top of their lungs on speakerphone, right? Like, there's just, they'll do it in the backyard or whatever. They'll park their cars wherever. There's 6 adult drivers there, and you're supposed to put your cars in your garage and your drive. There's a homeowners association thing there. No care about what's going on. It's a thing. And then there's the culture of like the wheeling and dealing, the sales process, or the always, looking for I'd say they're opportunists in that sense. And I work with a lot of engineers that work at like high tech levels, and you can see that they are struggling to adapt to the environments that they're in, because it's just it's totally different culture. There's not a big religious piece to that, like there is maybe like from the more Muslim countries, as they're coming over. We don't see a lot of that here. I don't see a lot of that in the Bay Area. I mean, it exists, but I think there's so many cultures here. They probably just get, lost in the mix kind of thing. But yeah, that one's troublesome to me. We have a lot of clients here that are from different areas of the world. That one is troublesome to me here. There's a lack of awareness and respect from a Western culture perspective.
Do you see a lot of them coming into your gym, or not so much? Oh yeah?
Yeah, a lot. A lot of them, and it's the first time they've ever had any even kind of introduction to health and fitness in their entire lives. So these are grown-ass adults, dude, that came over here. They are at some point, they've been here for a couple of years, or in some cases, they've worked up through the ranks. They lived in an apartment when they got here with 6 other dudes in bunk beds to make it, right, as an engineer. And they've climbed the ladder to an extent where they're making more money than they've ever seen in their life, but it's still not very much. And they're also like integrated into Western culture, which is like the food is in abundance, right? It's not necessarily healthy. They gain a lot of weight. They get really fat, and they're very unhealthy, like metabolically, and they've never done anything. And so, the ratio of females to males here is interesting. There's more females here than there are males in general. And that pool, if you're trying to date, or in their case, like marry, if they're not already in an arranged marriage or set up for one, and that part of it's kind of going away. When it first started showing up here, everything was arranged, and they had wives in India, and they were here, or they were promised to somebody there. But here, that you can see that they're trying to date and try to interact. So you see these groups of males that live together, work together, hang out together, whatever else. But they get fat and they get really out of shape, and then they recognize, like, dude, I don't stand a chance, certainly not here, if I don't start taking care of this. So they come in, and they have no idea what it is. They have no idea what it should cost. They want the cheapest thing you could possibly give them. They're the lowest commitment level. And they're also like, dude, if you got them do 20 jumping jacks, they're puking because they're so deconditioned. Wow. So it's like and there's communication challenges there too with the language. They speak English, but it's tough. That really changed during COVID for us. Like, there was a huge shift that we saw happen, because the executive levels, the director levels, they didn't have to go to work. They could work remotely and still do their jobs, where these guys needed to be like in office, or didn't have that option because they didn't have families living somewhere else, or didn't have the money to move, or they'd have their little 6-person collective, and that's how they're surviving. So that population just grew exponentially. So we see more of it now than we've ever seen it. I don't have a ton. It's not like the majority of my clientele, but I have a pretty large population of Indian dudes that work out they're awkward as fuck, dude. They're awkward.
I don't know exactly where you live, but do you live in like the Manteca, or it's like
I'm west.
Okay.
I'm west there. So I am in the San Francisco Bay Area. So you got you got the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And that spans the bay, like, as it opens up. So when that bay opens up and it comes down and it goes all the way around. So San Francisco's up here at the peninsula. We're down here at the bottom of the bay, in San Jose. And then if you start to go into East Bay, you start to get up into places like Fremont and Oakland, which is directly across the bay from San Francisco. So, and then above that is like wine country, Napa, Calistoga, if you've heard of those places, that you're starting to get out into the open spaces. And it's very densely populated through the bay, and we sit in kind of a bowl, and that is the Silicon Valley, right? We sit in a bowl, so we have kind of mountains, and they're 3,000-foot mountains. They're not huge. they're more like foothills because we have the Sierras here, which are further east. Manteca, that area is between those foothills, is on the other side of those foothills before you get to the Sierras. That's more in the Central Valley, which is like the richest farmland in the world. Most people don't recognize California like that. Like the majority of our state is wide open and it's farming and ranching. It's just we have these major densely populated metro areas like LA, the Bay Area, Sacramento. But if I go 10 air miles from here, I'm pretty exposed. Like there's not a lot out there. But it's just crammed into to one place where all the commerce happens.
It makes sense. I've been to a few places. I've been out there I've been to Fresno, and then I've been down to like LA, San Diego. I've never been up further north than Fresno though. I think it's the furthest north I've been in California.
It looks the same above Fresno if you just keep going. I lived in Fresno actually for a couple of years, so that being the Central Valley, so Fresno is mainly industry. There's some manufacturing and stuff that goes on out there, and then farming and ranching all around there. That's the Central Valley. That's most of California. When you really look at it on a map, and then as you get above there, if you get like above Sacramento, you're starting to get out kind of into the frontier. Like there's just you get up into the Sierra forests and things go all the way up into Oregon. Though it's wide open, like there's nothing out there, dude. Ranches, little tiny towns, mountain towns, things like that. It's still it's like a different country.
That's crazy.
California is like 3 different states when you kind of break it down.
Yeah, it's massive. Is that so? The northern, is that why it always kind of votes like on the red scale compared to everywhere else?
Dude, the majority of the state is red.
Yeah,
particularly with all that nonsense that Newsom pulled with redistricting. It came back and bit him in the butt. So all of the Central Valley, with the exception of again, when you get into Sacramento, which is very blue, but the surrounding areas are bright ass red. So the Sacramento's expanded into those other areas, and a lot of people moved out of the major metropolitan areas to go onto the suburbs and the urban areas around Sacramento because it was more affordable. There was jobs, there was things happening there, and those people moved from here because they were tired of policies or they couldn't afford it or they're blue collar, right? And they're like, I can't afford to live here anymore. So they moved out there. They're red. They're very red. It's Sacramento, the San Francisco Bay Area, and LA. When I say LA, there's a lot going on down there. It's not just LA. It's what extends east into the Inland Empire and things like that. That's blue, and that's really what controls our politics here. And it's so jacked up at this point. It's like the whole so what's the term? Electoral vote system is really jacked up in that sense, and plus there's something very wrong with our legislative system here now. That I don't think can be corrected, and you can't really put your finger on any one thing, but it's to say it's rigged, I think, is a little bit too pointed. It's just now by design, it's become something that has gotten out of control, and trying to reel it back will take decades and generations to fix. It's just the reality of the situation. It's all funded by big dollars. So
yeah, just watching the I've never really paid attention to a lot of politics out there, but the mayor race with the
LA,
they were the reality TV star,
Spencer Pratt.
Yeah, and how he was in second, but then you have 30 days I don't understand that. There's not a voting day, it's a voting month now. So hey, this person's losing, I don't know. I don't even understand how that works. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think you need to. I think your sense of this is the same that most people have, is even if you're on the blue side of this, you can look at this and go, something very wrong about this. Something is not right. Mm-hmm. And why are we not, in the sense of democracy, if we could just put our differences aside for a second, something's not okay about this. We need to look into what is going on, because what's good for the goose, is good for the gander kind of thing. It's working out in your favor now, but it only takes a couple things for it to go the other direction, and now you're on the other side of it, and we'll see how you feel about this. And we're seeing that happen in a couple of different areas. But yeah, man, something's very wrong about this. We saw it happen in Arizona, in Maricopa County, in the major Phoenix, Mesa, areas and things like that, when with Trump 1.0 and the governor races that were happening during that time. And it kind of went away, and it's come back. It's like, yeah, we had some fraud going on. We had some stuff in these election machines that was not okay. And then the mail-in ballots and all the stuff that goes along with that, and the waiting, now this waiting time, like, to me, that's subversion. And that just tells you, like, something's not right about this. Like, the whole, like, you don't have to show ID to vote. What in the hell?
That makes that like logic. There's no logic in that. That makes zero sense. Like, you have to show ID for everything else in this. Like, to not show it to vote is insane to me. And then
shouldn't we be looking into this, like, at every level? Like,
yeah. And then even like even their justification is like, oh, well, you're going to eliminate poor people. Then they're like, we'll just give you the ID that you have to carry. That's a state issued ID that can at least so now that's out the window. But still, there's like some people just like die on that hill of like, no, you don't need an ID to vote, which is insane to me. Just simply insane.
It is. It's like the tolerance. I think the new term I heard is like a suicidal empathy, right? And where does that actually really stem from? That is, you are so tolerant and want to be so empathetic that it's now costing you lives, costing you money, costing you, your livelihood, those kind of things. Like, you've given too much here. At some point, there has to be a line. There has to be right and left gutters here. There's laws, right? And then there's policies, and the policies continue to like push the I guess the ability to enforce the laws, because we've conflated and confused it so much that, and then it's in our courts, for sure. And it's a perpetual problem. That's what I'm saying, man. I think it takes generations to right that ship if people want to do it. And the only way I see that happening is like if this state flipped red, which it very much could on the governor side. If it flips red, like, it could start that, that process. But for how many years before it just goes back to the other way? And how much fighting do we do that restricts any type of movement forward? And look, man, from a politics side of things, like, you're being forced to take a side, because you're recognizing, like, if I'm not on a side, like, and that's been me forever. Like, I'm like, hey, look, I'm not going to plant my flag in either camp, because there's things I agree with and disagree with. Like, I'm a registered libertarian, Kenny. Like, it's like,
I think most of us are once at the core, once you start to talk about it.
And that's the majority of the state right now. But they're recognizing, like, the huge corporations they work for are not that way. They are very leaning to the left, right? And the ones that are leaning, that have been trying to manage that and going, look, maybe I am a registered Democrat, and this is kind of where my belief system lies, and they fulfill, most of the criteria for me. This also doesn't make sense anymore. And so they're leaving the state in droves. Massive financial movement moving out of the state. And so those people that work for them are also like, well, I should kind of ride the line, because I get paid way too much money for not contributing anything to society by working for, Google or Apple or, eBay or, all these companies or whatever. But they're looking at it going, I need to start making some I need to start critically thinking about some things, start making some different decisions. But they've never had to do that before, because I've always just been, well, I just vote this way because I vote this way. Right. And they don't know where we came from. They don't know what the history of any of this is. And so and then they're now in the dawn of social media and mainstream media and everything else, they're just being pumped misinformation, disinformation, confusing, things. And they don't know how to think for themselves, it's troubling, man. I mean, my gym is full of that. So for me, even just coming to work every day, like my conversations are very managed. They're very surface layer. Like, we have two rules here: no politics and no religion. That's always been the case. But anymore, it's like absolutely zero politics, absolutely zero religion. Don't even mention it. Like, don't bring it up. Like, I wear my shirts with the American flag, on there or whatever, and I'm sure I'm considered a fascist by my own clients that know me. And I know they are, because they talk to my trainers about it. They're like, dude, Scott's a Trumper. And they're like, why would you even think that? Like, why would you think that? Well, because, the firearms thing and the American flag. I'm like, why is it a problem to put American flag on your shirt? Like, but if I hung one up in here and I considered that, and then I got some advice, some feedback, there, for my coach, it's like, dude, if you do that, we're going to lose clients. I'm like, really?
Crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy, dude. It's just insane. So that's what I mean about the critical thinking piece and whatever.
It's just crazy. Yeah, it's just crazy that the American flag is assigned to a political party by any means. Like that make no sense to me.
Or
like,
creates some type of like anxiety or like I don't dissension or something like that. Like but that's where we are. That's where we are. And I have a very interesting perspective and viewpoint on it, living where I live. I mean, the whole world looks at like all the crazy shit California does all the time, and everything you heard about it, 99% of it's true. But there is this other stuff you don't hear about, like what you were asking about with like Fresno and the Central Valley and the red versus the blue and whatever else. Like if I fly 10 air miles the other way, outside of here, whichever direction, it's very red, in terms of, I will just say this, it's probably more libertarian than anything else, but it's still more conservative values. And I think you rooted in a lot more rational thought. But I would also say this, anytime I'm starting to get into conversation with anybody who's proud of being red, right, who's like really planted their flag in that Republican Party, it's also a little weird. And I'm like, look, I hear you, dude, but now you kind of sound like this guy you hate so much. It's just a different viewpoint.
I think on both ends of that spectrum, that's it's scary to be in that. You know what I'm saying? I think we're way more, as a country, probably more central than anything, but the far left, far right,
they control the narrative.
Like it, like that's where it's. Yeah, I don't know. If you can't be open minded to see both perspectives at minimum to have a conversation, and I'm not talking about in the gym, just in life, like
in general. Yeah.
Like, man, that's scary that you're so rooted in your. And you could be rooted in your beliefs, but to get offended by a conversation is insane to me. Like I'm not going to judge you any different if you have a different belief than him, but I think open enough to kind of a conversation is probably where we should be at in this society.
Right. I mean, if words are violence, then we're going to have a really big problem, because anything I say that could be slightly against your belief system is then considered an attack. And that's, again, going back to those hard rules that we have here. Like, let's just not even open that up, because it immediately goes that you can just see it on people's faces. Like, they don't know how to handle it. It's so odd to me. Like they can't, like, it starts okay. And then it, like, they're trying really hard because they know, like in my case, like if I'm using me as an example, like they know me personally. Like they know that I care for them, that I take care of them, that I look out for them, that I take care of my employees, that I, that I care. Right. And then I'm a human being. And then, so if the conversation starts to lean in a direction where it's semi-political or whatever else, you can see them really trying to hold on and like rationalize, like, I know this guy, like he's like, yeah, I am that guy. Right. But we have different beliefs. I'm treating you the same as I've treated you from day one. You've been here for 5 years. Like, I am still that guy. I just think differently than you. And then you can see them processing in their heads, like on their face, bro. Like, you can see them process, well, maybe I didn't know this guy the way I thought I did. No, you know me. I am that guy. We just think a little differently on a couple of things. That's it. That's all. So I'm very careful about, like, where I place or put information. But at this point, everybody knows I do a podcast. So if they get into it, they're immediately, like, they see a clip, I'm talking to a cop, or I'm talking to somebody who's talking about, I don't know,
guns or whatever,
or something like that. Yeah. And it's immediate. Like, I'm immediately placed in that bucket. So I'm an alien, I guess, is what it is.
Well, since we've been talking forever, let's backtrack, man, a little bit. Let's talk about you. How long, born and raised in California?
More or less, yeah. Born here. Parents are basically natives here. My dad grew up, around, but my mom, he was in Florida and Pennsylvania as a kid, and then ultimately came as a young boy. And so he was here. Has been here his whole life since, with the exception of, we did move around a little bit. Dad transferred, lived in Utah for a little while, and lived actually on the East Coast in Delaware for a short period of time, but moved back here when I was like 8. And so this is home, like California's home. Talking
about those taxes and stuff, we'll get. How have you seen that evolution change? Have you guys always paid high taxes, or is that something that's more recent? I guess.
I think high taxes are relative to, like, income, right? And property values, and how far can you stretch your dollar? Here's the deal: like, every year I can make a little bit more money, but every year my dollar goes less far. And that's always been the case here, and never more so probably in the last 15 years, 15, 16 years. I started Red Dot back in 2010, which was coming off of the market crash and the weird stuff that was going on with in 2008. And that was an interesting time. Expensive to live here. I mean, home values were still, they were expensive, but they weren't like, I wouldn't consider them, and maybe we were thinking this way back then, but like completely out of line. Now it's totally out of line and almost completely out of reach. I mean, people are paying millions of dollars for basically tear down homes. They're paying for the piece of property, and then they'll spend another $1 million building a home on top of it. And that $1 million comes in construction costs and permit fees and material costs that are all mired and layered in extra fees and taxes and inflation. So the answer to your question is it's always been a more expensive place to live, but it's also supply and demand. Like California is an amazing state, right? If you take the politics and kind of some of the weird bureaucracy out of it, I mean, the access that you have to stuff here, it's the best weather in the world, right? You have access to the mountains, to the oceans, to the rivers, to the lakes, like to some amazing history, places to, for the family. There's a lot of access here. There's a lot of opportunity here. And I think, people are willing to pay for that. So I think for a while, if I go back 15 years ago, when I started the business, it was much more viable then. Whereas now, looking at it, it almost doesn't make any sense to be a small business owner in the state anymore. It is so tough and so prohibitive at so many levels when you look at taxes and regulation. And every year, man, every single year, the occupancy / fire permit goes up 10-15%, right? My electrical bills, I'm here, PG&E, which is a public utility, is a privatized entity, right? They just keep jacking things around. They burn down forests, right? And then they get sued by the state for doing it. And then who pays for it? The energy consumer, right? So that keeps going up, right? My taxes, unemployment, disability, like all those things, it just keeps getting wildly out of control. The city taxes, the county taxes, there's just no stopping it. So again, answering your question, yeah, I think it's always been like that. It's just now reached a level where it's like almost impossible. And it depends on how deep you're dug into it. Like people would say, well, dude, just leave. I'm like, well, I got a brick and mortar here, right? And that the brick and mortar, took time to build. And I also have aging parents here, and I have kids here, and I'm a stepdad. And Callie's dad lives here. He's not leaving here. I can't just up and leave. So you got to make it work. And I think that's what a lot of people have tried to do. And a lot of people have been, I can't do it anymore. And they figured out a way to move on and move out, but that comes with compromise and sacrifice.
So is the gym the Red Dot? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you started that in 2010?
I started in 2010. I've been in the fitness industry since I was in my early 20s, and I'd done a 10-year run with a huge corporation, which was really great. A great lifestyle, great experience. Provided me tons of opportunity. It was a really good run, and then ultimately opened my own business. And I've been doing that since 2010 was when it started, and it started with just me. And it was me and Cece, and then we expanded from a little tiny space that was 600 square feet into bumped out some walls a couple of times, acquired another little space. We had kind of two places working at one time, then ultimately moved into the spot that we have now. It's like 6,000 square feet, and it's primarily personalized services. We do group training, but it's all human performance and personal training, group training, stuff like that.
When you had this going through COVID out there specifically, how was that?
Horrible. I still have major PTSD from it. I have anger management issues as a result of it. This county, I'm in Santa Clara County. This was the toughest county in terms of regulation in the entire state. The county of Santa Clara there was more dollars fined to small businesses in this county than in the entire state. It was more combined than any of the surrounding 7 counties that exist here. It was awful. I had a chain on my door. Basically, it was locked for a full year. So we shut down in February of 2020, and we did not open up again until February. We didn't open the doors back up until February of 2021. It was a horrific time, dude. It was at so many levels.
They put the chain and lock on there, meaning like you, or did theoretically?
So I say that theoretically, and I'll tell you how that happened. So people go, "Oh, you should have just stood up." Yeah, well, we did, and we paid the price for that. Like having our business posted in the newspaper and basically being doxxed for going against the rules. Well, that costs you clients, that costs you community status, and we'd spent a long time. We'd spent 10 years building that, and all of a sudden we were the enemy because we were trying to provide health and wellness to the people that really needed it. It wasn't. I watched people deteriorate that we'd been working with for a long time very, very quickly. I mean, people, can throw shade and say whatever, like, dude, you're not that important. No, I don't think I'm that important, but I do believe that the services that we provide to the people we provide them to are important to them, or they wouldn't be here. They pay good money for that. We take a high level of responsibility to the integrity in which we provide those services, and in a lot of ways, a lot of times we have, and I say this kind of in air quotes, save people's lives because they're in really, really bad spots, and when that gets taken away from them, and we're not in a position to help them continue on their path, which a lot of times is just that accountability, that sense of community, that sense of feeling important, about yourself and knowing that somebody else feels the same way about you. When that got taken away, dude, I watched people get wrecked, and get really unhealthy mentally, physically, physiologically, in a big way. It was very, very tough time. But to say that there was a lock on the door, the county health department office is literally a block and a half away. And they were going around and knocking on doors and showing up. Like they recruited, I don't know, Mary Jones, who's social justice police, COVID police or whatever, to all of a sudden now you're anointed. You're not like a county health inspector, but basically on this inspection team to go around and visit businesses and see who was not playing by the rules. Now, I will tell you, we did everything we possibly could to play by those rules the best we could, to the extent that we had we basically leased the parking lot, a public parking lot that's owned by the city, about 100 yards from our front door. Set up a hurricane fence, put a Connex box out there. I got a huge, jungle gym, bunch of rigs, put those out there, took our equipment out there, and we were trying to just maintain. And it was awful. I mean, it's not the same. I mean, you're on top of that, you're being vandalized, burglarized during that time. The inner city was imploding. With the fentanyl crisis, I was watching the whole, right outside my front door. It was awful, man. It was pure survival. Meanwhile, financially, I'm being ruined.
Yeah.
I'm watching my kids struggle with school. My family struggling with the things that they were struggling with and everything else. So, like, on top of the business end of it, it was all the personal. The personal side of it, it was just trying to kind of figure it out. It was a very rough time. It was touch and go. And we're one of the very few that actually survived that whole business. It was I could tell stories, and I don't want to do that because it's just griping. I think at the end of the day, it was 6 years ago, but it really feels like it was yesterday, and we haven't fully recovered from it. I didn't have any debt going into COVID. Now I'm mired in it, right?
Wow.
Just to stay alive. Yeah.
That's insane. With when you talked about you see people deteriorate really fast, I'm assuming that you meant more on like the mental wellness aspect of it than even like the physical aspect of it.
It's both. They're both tied in together, man. I've never met a mentally unwell person that was also physically well, and I think it works the other direction too. If you're not physically well, you're also not going to be mentally well. So I think when you got two of those things working against you, and things that got pulled out of their control and out of our control, and a lot of that is just having that human connection, and having a brick and mortar provides that. And a lot of gyms or a lot of facilities will tell you, oh, like, it's about the community and whatever. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but for us, like, it really is a family oriented environment. Everybody knows one another. I have, like, everybody here is an employee. I don't have a bunch of like independent contractors that you might find at these places where everybody's kind of working on their own agenda, does their own thing, working their own program. Everything here is very integrated. Coaches share clients. They're also coaching the group classes. We know their kids. I know their kids' soccer game or soccer team names, you know, like what's going on. We go to birthday parties. There's weddings. There's funerals. There's all that kind of stuff. It was very, very much, it's always been very integrated. And so when that happened and you start to pull those components apart, it wasn't just about us not being there for those people. It was about those people not being there for one another. And, also on top of the stresses and the fears and the things that they were going through on their own things, whether or not they were going to have a job, right? Whether or not they were going to be able to put food on their table, you know, whether or not their family member that was sick or their family member that was having a baby that was now in the hospital and you couldn't go in to see, you know, your daughter or your son, you know, with their newborn and shit like that. Like that stuff stacks up. And on top of what's visibly happening around you and what's going on in the media and everything else, it was, dude, deterioration is the best thing the best way I can describe it. Most people did not handle that very well at all.
Yeah, I still find it mind-blowing that you weren't able to have gyms open, but you were able to have liquor stores open. Like at the base level, I'm just still like, someone, please make it make sense. Like that, I don't even understand this.
Oh, they were selling alcohol to go from the restaurants, right? Like you could go get a to-go cup of like a margarita, right? And it's literally like, but the accommodation, like we're moving the inside outside, but it's really inside. You know, it's like, okay, so I just moved a bunch of tables and chairs into the parking lot, but basically I put up a circus tent around it, so we're all still inside anyway. That's fine, right? But I could tell stories and we could laugh about it now, but you're just looking at it going, this is insanity. Like what something very wrong here. Like what, and that again, going back to deterioration, like having to see and deal with that, but going back to the gym side, it was gyms and salons that got, seemed to be like on the front page every day of like, we were the problem. We were the ones spreading the sickness. And I'm like, and so every time there would be like a spike, if you remember that, they were always reporting the COVID spike, right? Like, oh, more people are sick. And what was that being based on? I don't know. I still have questions about like, where were these statistics coming from? You know, every time something like that would come up, our governor would get on TV and start talking about people that weren't following the rules. They were literally, we were one of those places where they were taking the playground equipment off of the playgrounds. They were taking the basketball hoops off the backboards in the parks. Nobody was getting like ticketed and sent to jail. It was just like, it was communism at its very best, man.
Yeah,
we're just going to control everything, right? So, and that might be a little bit like exaggerated, but that's what it felt like to me. Like, you know, and I'm looking at it happen, and so you're I guess waking up every day and having to deal with that stuff, like mental deterioration was happening. I was in a really, really dark place, man. Really dark place, for so many reasons. And I think everybody kind of dealt with like the family dynamic of like, where is my brother sit on the side of this thing and how do I navigate this conversation and like the disconnect. I mean, I remember even with my own family, like them being so unaware of how that whole thing was impacting me, right, personally and professionally. And like our clients, same way, like the disconnect between like us having an outdoor gym, right, and masks and things like that and social distancing and all that, and like somehow we were causing a problem, but the governor would be going, got to shut down the gyms and salons. These are the guys that are spreading the disease. I'm like, MFer, you shut us down like 6 months ago. We've been shut down. Like, I don't know how this could be. How is this even still a thing? And it just kept kind of coming out again. It was just like it was pointing fingers and it was doing that kind of stuff. And we were right in the middle of that. It was a tough place to. I'm chuckling about it now. I'm still angry. That's my like nervous laugh. I'm still angry about it because it was absolutely ridiculous. And we're still, like I said, we're still impacted by it.
I don't know how you survive that. Like that's as a business that is fitness, like, and you're being shut down first and foremost. I have a buddy.
I can answer that question. The only way I survived that, or we survived that, was by coming together. And there's no way I would have made it through without Cece. And sitting across from her, because we were kind of working from home, if you will. We had a lot of time to sit across the table and deal with all of these problems together and find solutions to them and talk through stuff and try to be innovative. And we were at several different levels. To have to jump through rings and hoops and be accused of things we weren't doing, literally, like getting scathing emails, from people that we'd been trying to take care of for the last 10 years. And also, things that, again, being doxxed in the newspaper. It's like, what is this about? Like all that kind of stuff. And then we did have a very strong nucleus of, because we had built this community coming together. And even if we sat differently on opinions and thoughts on different things, they still recognized that we were who we were, as human beings, and that we could talk about it. And we were trying to accommodate people and care for their feelings. Right. And that might sound a little bit soft and weird, but it was like, look, our business is about taking care of people. That's literally, we have a vested interest in your health and well-being. And so we made adjustments, we made accommodations, we did our very best. There is no way, without the clients that we had, the people supporting us in our community, and the support from one another, both personally and professionally, particularly between Cece and I, there's just no way, man. There's just no way. So there's a lot of components to that, but that's really it. It was about community. It was about people coming together and finding a way through it. Whereas at that time, there was so much division happening, so much division.
Yeah, I feel like going through that, and if you come out on a positive end on the other side of it, it's almost like, I don't know if this is the right word, but like a trauma bond where you're going to have like lifelong friends, whatever, better relationships with those people, just because you went through this traumatic thing together, and instead of pushing it away, you guys come closer together.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that, and that is certainly part of the history there for sure.
My buddy owned a gym in Indiana during this, and Indiana wasn't as strict like that. We did have like, I think maybe we shut down for like 2 or 4 weeks, everything. And then what they'd started to do is like allowed restaurants and places that serve food to sell to-go things. And he came up with the idea, well, I sell shakes and other things like protein shakes. So he's like, the gym's open, but they're just coming here to get shakes. And what they do on that side of the counter, I'm not going to stop them from doing. And I guess a few times the state police tried to come in there and like shut him down, and he was not having it. And I don't know the pushback. Eventually he made it through COVID and sold it on the other end of it, because he didn't want to ever deal with that again. But yeah, that was kind of his like, oh, well, I serve shakes, so that's why people are coming. And if they decide to jump on the machines over here, I'm not stopping them. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I can tell you, like, during that time, because we had so much time on our hands, I mean, we were typically, you'd be going from 5 a.m. in the morning when we opened the doors till 8 p.m. at night. Generally, we never stayed open that much later than that. It's just kind of the culture, the fitness culture that we have here, is people were getting it done more during the early part, the middle part of the day. My point in saying that is like, that just wasn't happening anymore. Everything was very much reduced, and so Cece and I had a ton of time on our hands. And so what we were doing is we were road tripping. We were going to other states. We were going to other cities in our own state, and we were seeing how different it was in other places, and recognized how different our situation was as compared to other people, including gyms, restaurants, bars, whatever, service businesses and things like that. And how it was refreshing, because we're like, okay, there are people that here are being maybe a little bit more rational, and this is a little bit freer, if you will, in terms of your American freedoms. But it was very tough to come back every time, right? And then have to, go back into the environment that we were in and have to deal with that. But it was at some level therapeutic and helpful. And, many, many times, and we tried actually plenty of times during that time, was like, let's just pack up and get the hell out of here, right? But at the same time, like, again, I kind of rattled off a few reasons why not. There were other things that was just like, number one, financially, that might have been okay in month one, right? But then you're looking at it like, I can't even pay my rent. Like, if clients aren't coming in here and working out with coaches, right, they're not going to pay. And some of them did. Some of them continue to pay for even a lot less than they got. Again, coming back to the community coming together, they could afford to do that, and they cared enough to see us get through it that they kept paying. And we well, I'll lay down in front of a bus for those people to this day, right? For those people that hung in there with us during that time. And I think they did that because they saw us really working hard, and we had already provided a high level of value for them, right? That's the only thing I can really think of. At least that's what they've told us too. Like, the reason I stay is because how much you guys have done for us, and I see how hard you're working. So we coming out the other side of it, and looking back, like, I'm glad we didn't leave. But every day it goes through my head, like, what am I still doing here? And I have hard reasons for why I am here, but it's going back to taxes and, bureaucracies and politics and expenses and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy. I'm not whining about it because I could leave, but I'm not willing to make those compromises to, things that are really important to me foundationally and fundamentally. I'm not willing to compromise that. It would go against who I am as a human and who I am as a person, and I'm just not going to do that.
No, I get it. I completely understand. Kind of a personal question: tax bracket. Like, I don't know how California works, but are you paying over 50% or around that number in taxes a year?
Yeah, I think when you really boil it down, so yeah, like, the business is an S corp, so there's things that happen there in terms of your K1 and how your stuff goes through, and I think one of the things you learn how to do when you work in California and you own a business in California is there are some things that can play in your favor in terms of how tax laws work and, from a state perspective and whatnot. And we're running a very clean, very well organized business. I think what COVID did, particularly in the gym and the salon business, I mean, we're talking about those, and even the restaurant business, it exposed people that were just not running very well organized or, I would say, like, fiscally responsible businesses. If you're just kind of running by the skin of your teeth kind of thing all the time, you're good at selling stuff, right? And you were able to kind of figure it out from month to month or whatever. When COVID hit and that stuff kind of, hit us right square in the face, like, you were going to get exposed really fast. It was going to limit you, and a lot of those businesses are gone. And a lot of those people are gone. And for us, we had been what I like to consider very smart about how we had done things. It certainly wasn't smart enough to overcome all of a sudden just being cut off at the knees. Yeah. But at the same time, like, it put us in a position to maneuver. The word at the time was pivot, right? And do different stuff. And we'd never been satisfied with, like, just being, just okay. Like, there's things that we were never preparing for a freaking pandemic, but at the same time, we were being smart enough to be ready to do some different things and be nimble enough to make some moves and have relationships that we could go to and for advice or for even for finance and things like that to work through the thing. So yeah, I think from a tax perspective and whatnot, yeah, we're paying way more than we should be. And I say that because of all the non-tax paying people that I know. I can go outside my door right now and see that aren't paying taxes, that are somehow living just fine, right, with no consequence. And my taxes keep going up, and there's more freebies, and there's more programs, and there's more things, and none of that changes. It only continues to grow and inflate. So one way or another, I'm paying close to 50% in tax. Yeah, close to. Yeah. And by the way, I'm a small business owner, so all this nonsense about billionaires not paying their share or whatever, like, the billionaire tax, right? It's not even going to touch what the contributions are from guys like me, right? And what we're contributing on the like per capita across the board. It's not even going to come close.
Well, I saw something the other day, and I think it's out of all the billionaires, they pay, and this could be wrong, but they're paying like 90% of the actual taxes in this country. Like, and like, even then, and then you break that down even more, and it's like the top 1% is paying the majority of that, or whatever it may be. So, I mean, are they paying proportionately? I don't really know, but that's still a hell of a lot of taxes that they're paying.
Look, again, just going back to kind of how we organized ourselves. I mean, there's things you do as a business owner, right? Like, in terms of where you put expenses, like, just real simply, like on a basic level, like I'm not paying a cell phone bill. Well, that's a couple $100 a month. So that's a couple $100 that's not coming out of my paycheck, right? It goes through, that runs through the business. You can do like car leases or auto loans and things like that. And so you manage it, right? It doesn't mean you're not paying taxes. So you're paying tax. You're just finding the ways to make that work the best for you, so that you can manage the income and expenses out of your business and out of your personal, your personal stuff. So where you're putting money, how you're putting it there. Going back to what I said, we ran very clean. I'm not evading taxes.
Right.
I'm not cheating the system. I'm using the system because I understand what the system is to work for me. I've heard some very high level very vocal political people out there at some very high levels talk about that, or be called out for, taking advantage of the tax system. Yeah, because that's what it's there to do. Like if you understand it, it's not taking advantage of it. It's working in the system that was provided for them. If you want a different system, then you need to change it. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of bitching about it, but nobody seems to really want to change it. And when they do, they go to a very small percentage of people, and with a very loud voice, to the people that wanted that change for whatever the reasons are. I don't think it makes much difference in the end. We have bigger problems than our billionaires tax.
I completely agree. Is during COVID, is that when you started your podcast then?
Yeah. So again, pivoting, maneuvering. So the office I'm sitting in right now used to be physical therapy and chiropractic work. So we have a space in the back of our studio where we were subleasing to some practitioners that would come in here. And as soon as COVID hit, they were done. Like they're like, I can't afford to pay rent anymore. Like everything's going away right now. So that was another downstream impact of what happened. So this office basically opened up. That's where the space came from. But the impetus for the podcast is very quickly, I needed to move to putting some services and products online, like every other gym owner or every other trainer that was out there doing it. It's like, okay, well, how do I now do this digitally, because I can't get in front of people or as many people as I was before? And everybody was doing that. And we were able to shift into that fairly quickly, because we had already had a sort of a skeleton of that had been working for us prior to like our larger expansion into this bigger space. We had just stepped away from it going, hey, we need to put butts in the seats and fill up the new, the new square footage. We'll come back to the online stuff that we had been already doing at some level. So I was able to kind of turn that back on, added a few new products there. And it was like, now I need a way to market this. And, there's social media is an amazing place to market your stuff. And people had encouraged me prior to do podcast. And I was like, I'm not doing a podcast. Who wants to listen to me talk? Like, I don't have the time for it, even if I wanted to, but like, who wants to listen to that? But when all of a sudden I was having phone conversations with my industry friends all over the country, even the world for that matter. And we, a lot of this was just shopped. A lot of it was commiserating because we were all kind of going through it at our own levels. But a lot of it was like a collaboration on like, well, what are you doing? Who are you seeing be successful? What are they doing? What are the new tools we could use? Like technology, like all that kind of stuff. And so my idea was like, okay, maybe we do start a podcast. It will give me a way to promote my online products. If I can get a little bit going, basically the gym sponsors the podcast, right? And the products are the product that the podcast sells, but it does that through providing health and fitness information, talking with industry leaders, talking health and fitness. That's where it started. So the makings of it were starting late in 2020, because that's how long. Remember, we were dealing with a lot of stuff, but it started to take shape in like kind of the summer there, and it was all health and fitness when we started. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when COVID came out, it was like, what was it, like 2 weeks to like stop the curve or whatever the hell you're saying or whatever it is. So like most business owners aren't looking at this as in my mind, I would think like, I'm not looking at this as a long-term impact, let alone a year. Like, so I'm looking at 2 weeks and then it just continued to perpetuate and go on forever for whatever reason.
To that point, to your point before too, like we were seeing what was happening in other areas of the country. And so we're like, okay, this can't be too much longer. It can't be too much longer. Like, and we kept getting made, I don't want to say promises, but it was the communication from I'll just say the government, because that's who really was controlling all of this, were very mixed. And we were expecting to, like, it's very tough to manage, run, and or grow or survive a business when you don't know what's happening week to week. Like, it's going back to like who went away because they weren't managing their businesses cleanly or well. It was those people that went away, right? They were already managing them week to week. At least we had some runway and we had some planning. So my point in saying that is we were expecting to open much sooner, and we kept hearing could be here, it could be then, could be here, it could be then, and it just kept that word is exactly right, just perpetuated, and it went on and on and on. And we were one of the last places to basically have our doors open with restrictions, like you can only have this many people based on square footage, everybody has to do this, nobody can do that. Like it was insane.
It's crazy times looking back at it. Just I don't know if we did anything at all productively to prevent that, and what we did do, like, I don't know. I don't think that the death rates were as astronomical as they anticipated them being.
I think we all got questions about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very I mean, yeah, man, I don't know. It's just interesting. And my sister's a nurse, and when this was all happening, I put off doing the COVID vaccine for a long time, and I finally caved in because I thought I wasn't going to be able to fly. But having these conversations with her, like, her hospital wouldn't put people on ventilators almost immediately because they're like, no, like, that will kill them. Like, she's telling me this. So we're not doing that. And then they're pushing all these ventilators all over the world, and then they're like, oh, yeah, that could have probably killed some people. And all it took was like a small little hospital that's like, the doctor's like, no, we're not doing that because this is the outcome. And if they knew, how does other places not? I don't know, just crazy to me. Insane.
Follow the money. And in the same vein, like, yeah, it just takes one person to impact it one way or another, right? And one credible, valued, respected voice to stand up and say, no, we're not doing that. And that's what it takes. It takes people coming forward going, hey, we're going to do this differently, or we're not doing it that way, and here's why, right? Not just because I stand on this side of a political party or whatever else. That was an interesting time. I think one of the most grievous things that happened in that entire thing was the total mistrust in the health system, in our medical care system and our healthcare system. I mean, and I deal with that, at the gym all the time now. There's so many questions that people have, and they've chosen side. Like, no, I believe, I follow my doctor's orders to a T. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, well, let's think about that for a second. Like, does that really seem like the right thing for you at this point? Like, you seem like you're unsure about it, but you're looking for this answer or the solution to your problem. And you feel like you may have gotten this solution, by what this person has told you or this entity has told you or what they're giving you. And they're kind of satisfied with that answer, but they're also not getting the result, or they're not getting healthier. It's, it's just curbing a symptom for a little while or whatever else. I'm like, well, maybe we should be looking at the greater whole here. And my point of that is to what you said there is like, can we just step back for a second, just for a second, right? And have a look at some things, and let's look at what's really going on. What's the history here? Where are we right now? Where you're trying to go? Does this seem like the right answer for you? And to your, again, to the death rates and all of that stuff, it didn't take very long. I think if you have any rational sense whatsoever to look at this and go, hold on a second, like, dude died in a car accident, we're marking that as a COVID death? Like, something's not right. And that, again, going back to mental or emotional deterioration, like, yeah, that's not helpful.
No,
right?
Yeah,
not helpful.
And not to discount, like, I think people with breathing problems and those, like, we're definitely impacted by this, whatever it may be. Like,
100%.
But like, I don't know, man. It was just we all fell under the same umbrella, no matter what your health status was, your fitness status, like anything else. And I guess maybe I understand initially if you're not knowing what it's going to do and how it's going to impact people, but I don't think it took a year for them to figure that out. And why we stayed in this weird world that we were living in during that entire year is still just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are still living in it, right? And so that's also equally or maybe even more mind-blowing that we're kind of still living there. Now, I will say this, and I'll just go back to what I said. I do care about people. I certainly care about my clients, my family, my friends. So I tried to be empathetic, as best I could, and I still do that, right? My level of tolerance and compassion has changed a little bit if I compare those two things. Like, my tolerance level is much, much higher, I think, to irrationality, or maybe, dare I say, ridiculousness, compared to my compassion, where it's just like, I just can't care like you're caring about this, because it's to me, rationally, it's not that important, or it's, it may be a big deal to you, but it doesn't have to be a big deal to me, and I'm not going to harbor that, right? So, the change in kind of approaching things, I think a lot of people just kind of continue to drift into this fear, management type of thing. And again, when it goes to health, physical, mental well-being, like that is a bad place to go, right? And that's not going to end well. And I think a lot of people kind of got caught up in that, and they're kind of just, that's where they are now. And so, going back to like the grievousness of distrust in the healthcare system, there's an opposite side to that, where it's like, I was all in on that before, and I'm all in on that now. And even with, again, sort of the ridiculousness, and going back to the doctor who said, like, maybe ventilators aren't a great idea, they're still so entrenched in that they can't see kind of the forest for the trees, and ask themselves maybe to think more critically about, like, well, maybe that was a good idea. We were all trying to figure it out. Right. Like, I was certainly concerned. I mean, when the first thing, the thing hit, originally I was like, hey, man, this is kind of scary. Like, if people are dying from this thing, like, we need to be careful. We need to be safe. Like, what can I do to manage that? At the same time, it wasn't like I'm fearful of dying, right? It's more like, hey, how do we keep the community safe here? Like, what are the things that we need to do while also taking care of their emotional and personal needs? Because that is what we do here. It's as much about what we do here at the gym as what I do in my personal life. Like, I'm like, hey, man, how can I help you? How can I take care of you? So you got to be connected to that level. But I think the way I do that now is much more calculated, is maybe the right word, much more metered, in terms of my own emotional, and personal investment in helping somebody solve their problem, or help them in the way that they need help. I'm definitely more reserved. Well, let's just say careful, and about how much I give, versus what I expect or not expect to receive in return.
No, yeah, that makes I completely understand what you're saying. That makes perfect sense, where you're, I guess, understanding and empathetic with their fears, but you're not going to invest a ton of your own energy into that if it doesn't bother you as much as it bothers them.
I'm sure it's very, very familiar to you as a law enforcement officer, right? I mean, you care about the person that you're trying to help right now, but at the same time, like, you have a job to do, and you have information they don't have, and there's things that you can and can't do, and you can't overcommit. There's only so much you can do, so how invested can I be here, and how much can I really commit to this person you have to be careful about it from a professional sense, but also from a personal liability sense. So I think I learned a lot during that time. I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about people, how to handle situations. And I guess to your original question about the podcast, that's taught me a lot. The podcast taught me a lot, because now I was starting to have conversations with so many different people at so many different levels. It was a good place for me to be very introspective about how I was handling my own business. And I don't mean that just like the professional business, but my own personal business. Like, oh, maybe I'm being a little hard. Maybe I'm being a little short. Maybe I should be shorter. Maybe I shouldn't, sit here and listen to the swan song or the carrying on about this. Like, I'm done. Like, I've had enough. My limit's been reached. Knowing my limits, like knowing my right and left parameters now, is probably more defined than it ever was. And I have to give sort of that experience that we went through, as awful as it was, some credit. There was some value that came out of that, for sure.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about the healthcare system and the distrust. It's interesting, because my general practitioner was like an independent general practitioner. Now he's with a major, I don't even know, like medical corporation, I guess,
Yep.
or whatever it may be. But when I started to feel that my testosterone levels were down, he wanted me to do all these other things. And then before he would even test me, and I was like, I just went to a sports medicine doctor and got tested, and 2 years after my first test, like my testosterone plummeted. So I was on a small amount, and I went to him and I told him, and he said, basically, like off the record, like, I can't just do that because of the network that I'm in. He's like, your testosterone is lower than mine, and I'm on TRT. And I was like, okay, good to know. At least you're being transparent with me at this point, and now I understand where you're coming from. Probably shouldn't have told me that shit, but I'll never say his name, so it doesn't really matter. But like, I was like, man, that's just interesting how. And he's like, you can't survive as an independent doctor. You can't just be an independent doctor. Like, he's like, the financial aspect of it, you just don't have it. So that they force everyone in these big like networks or whatever they're fucking called, and then you have to abide by the network rules and guidelines that in the long run probably are getting money from big pharma, and that's why they're sending you through all this other testing and shit like that. So it's just crazy to me.
You've touched a huge nerve with me on that because of the nature of the business that I'm in, and seeing people come in with their own, personal issues, whatever. When I say issues, I just mean what is their medical history, what is their fitness history, emotional well-being history, all plays in. What pharmaceuticals are they taking? Which ones are they not taking? What have they done? What have they engaged in? Where are they getting their advice from, and all that kind of thing. And so going back to like the distrust, there's a confusion. There's whether maybe the client or the patient knows that they have trust issues here or not. There's questions that are being asked, and they're often questions they can't answer on their own. So they're just looking for answers. I just want to feel better. I want to be out of pain. Like, I need this problem resolved, right? And I recognize, even if they're recognizing like this is, largely my responsibility because I didn't take care of myself, or I could have done things better. Okay, well, that's in the past. So what are we going to do now moving forward? And to your point with the how medical care works, and I don't think I think a lot of more people now have been exposed to how it actually does work. They just didn't see it happening while it was happening. And if I go back to when I started my business and I start looking at kind of what's been going on from the healthcare perspective, this really took a right turn, or a left turn, however you want to look at it, back in Obama's presidency when Obamacare came through, because what it forced was what you just described that your own doctor had gone through, which was, okay, now I'm being pigeonholed into how I care for patients. Like, there are, based on what this person is paying for, what their insurance can pay for, and what this insurance company or what this medical conglomeration will accept or provide, that dictates what my patient gets in terms of care versus what they actually need or what they should need. And that goes from everything from assessment and evaluation, right, to diagnosis, to then what happens after that, prognosis, all the way down through treatment, right, and ultimately whatever the quote unquote return to play plan is, which is, it shouldn't be about like, we're giving somebody a medication, like, okay, so that's what we're doing for now, but what are we doing for later? Like, is the plan to try to get this person off this medication? And that was much different 15 years ago. Really? And those doctors practiced at a much different level then. There's more autonomy, I think, and part of that is they were being paid, I think, a fair wage to do that. Now, the insurance companies have always been insurance companies. They're always going to do wacky stuff. And doctors are always, just like any other profession, there are good ones, there are not so great ones, and there are some, nefarious ones out there that will do stuff, right, with fraud and maybe doing things or not doing things they should be doing. That's not my point. My point is when you get to a situation where how much money you pay or what your employer provides you in terms of medical care dictates the level of medical care you actually need to get through the situation that you're in, I think we're in a little bit of a tough spot. And what that really does is it puts physicians in a very, very tough spot. So as you'll hear me sometimes on the podcast get very frustrated with that medical care system and how physicians handle people. I just went through it within the last 2 weeks before I had gone on this trip with one of my personal clients. I don't have very many of those, but this is a guy that's in the Kaiser system, right? And he has had some shoulder issues. That is very common. Shoulder things are a problem. The guy's 54 years old. Like, he's been very active his whole life. He's worked hard and played hard that entire time. Lifts hard, works out, tries to do all the right things, right, all the time. He's gone through a nutrition coaching program. This dude's dialed, but he's older, and some stuff was popping up, and things that the things that we would kind of generally apply. And Cece, who's really an expert on evaluation and assessment based on her background in sports medicine, had gone through with him and kind of confirmed the things that I had already assessed. The next step was to get an MRI, and because we need to have a deeper look at what's going on inside the shoulder to really know, is what we're applying the best thing for you right now, knowing that there's probably some issues in there. But that issue, whatever it is, doesn't mean it's a death sentence that we stop working out or we stop doing things. What are the things that we can overcome those? Most shoulder pain or most shoulder issues is due to poor shoulder mechanics. And this guy had that when he came to me, and we'd been working through some stuff, and then he went out and did something silly. He admittedly it was something silly, and it messed it up. And my point, again, getting back to the point of that is he went, and the guy he had to see first was a general practitioner who doesn't specialize in orthopedics, right? And the first thing he tells him is oh, you don't need an MRI. He's asking for an MRI. This guy is a business owner, right? He pays for that insurance policy, not just for him, but for his employees. He's been paying it for years and never uses it, right? And now he's here going, hey, I would like some imagery on my shoulder so I can share it with my coaches and my other allied health care professionals. He sees massage therapists, he sees a chiropractor, whatever, so that they can have a better idea what's going on, so they can actually help me, not in the 5 minutes you're going to give me, but I see these people for hours during the week, and I am going to remain active, right? So I'm going to keep doing stuff. I just want to know what I should be doing and maybe some of the things that we need to work around. Now, you don't need to see that. The dude didn't even put his hands on the guy. Like, he didn't even do like a physical assessment. He's like, if I thought I needed an MRI or you need an MRI, I would order you one. And then he tells him, like, you have some arthritis. There wasn't even a hands-on assessment. The guy's telling me he has arthritis. And so client, who I'd sort of prepped for this, and he knew because he's been through the ringer before with the system, is like kind of pounded his hand on the desk. He goes, I need some imagery. He goes, all right, well, oh, sorry. The first thing is I'll send you to some physical therapy. For what? There's not even a diagnosis here, like a legitimate diagnosis. For what? Arthritis? Like, let's get a deeper look so that when the physical therapist doesn't do that diagnosis, right, they take the orders from the physician that it came from and they apply whatever's inside their silo of options, going back to what you said, to whatever that diagnosis is. And we don't even have one of those. So you can hear the tone of my voice. I'm getting pissed off, right?
Yeah.
So then he finally convinces the guy to get an x-ray, and I'm like, okay, well, an x-ray is going to show space and it's going to show the skeleton. It's not going to show a lot of other things. So if there's some arthritis in there, you might get a little piece of that. Like if there's some bone spurs in there, you might be able to see that. You might be able to see closed spaces. Yes, I already know based on the shoulder mechanics, how you look statically and how you move physically, that joint structure is going to be a bit compromised. So I would expect you might have some arthritis. You're also 54 years old and been working hard and playing hard as a laborer, right? You've been working hard and playing hard your whole life. I expect there's some that's definitely probably going to have some of that. I know I have some, at this point. Doesn't get what he wants. Gets the x-rays. The x-ray showed exactly what I just said, and he knew it. And then he finally goes back and he gets an MRI. He's finally able to wiggle his way in there, but he has to go see a specialist, right? So he goes through this process of going through the GP, who does, in my opinion, a neglectful job of helping this guy, who pays his insurance bills, right? Who pays his premium every month or whatever, avoids the physical therapy, which is going to be a total waste of time and probably misapplied because there is no diagnosis to begin with, has an x-ray, which doesn't show much because they generally don't, right? Goes to see the orthopedic specialist, who gets his hands on him and goes, okay, yeah, we'll get you an MRI, right? And Kenny, I'm telling you, when that MRI came back, it said exactly what Cece had assessed in her hands-on assessment 3 weeks prior. And so at least then and then he wrote a scathing email to the GP, goes, this is why I wanted the MRI in the first place. But no, most people aren't doing that, and most physicians aren't having to deal with that. And the conglomeration is protecting them from all of that. At the same time, putting them in, the ones that want to do a good job, like your guy, in a very bad spot. So I want to respect all of that. But at the same time, like, we're in a really, really, really terrible position right now. And then you tack on the whole COVID situation and all the things that came out of that. I think what we're stuck with right now, or where we're sitting in right now, is a really bad place. And if I think generationally is how people have dealt with this, so I think about my parents My parents only dealt with doctors for the first 40, 50 years of their life, that were the guys that were like, let's do the right thing by this person. Let's figure it out. Right. And then slowly it shifted. Unbeknownst or knownst to them, it started to shift. And then they start to get into their later years in life where, yeah, their health is deteriorating a little bit for all kinds of reasons. Whatever, we're aging, that's part of it. They're less active, that's part of it. Things start to pop up. And then they're kind of desperate because, like, I need to be out of pain. I need to fix this problem. They start taking the pill and whatever else. And slowly but surely now it's wound up where I just described. And now it's the younger generations that are stuck with that from the get-go. They're entering into that situation. So they didn't even have the experience of what that original healthcare sort of looked like. And now this is the norm. And that puts us in even a tougher spot because now those people are becoming the doctors. So going back to that word perpetuation, it's just perpetuating itself. And we continue to become sicker and unhealthier as a nation as a result. Sorry, that was I sorry to get on that soapbox.
No, yeah, I figured
it's a huge nerve for me. Man.
Yeah.
A really sensitive one.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd even look at it that aspect of like the new next generation of doctors and next generation of what the patient is going to expect. This of what we expect now even is going to be so minimal from a doctor that we don't even know, or they don't even know what they're missing. Kind of that's just going to be the norm.
It's been institutionalized.
Yep.
And again, it's just relating to the line of work that you're in law enforcement. It's kind of similar. Right. Yeah. You know, like you lose that institutional knowledge and that care. It's also dictated by what the system of the bureaucracy, you know, the rails that you have to kind of, or the lanes that you kind of have to stay within. And slowly it starts to break down. It becomes less effective. It becomes, you know, the game is more efficiency. And that's really about dollars and cents at the end. But we're really not taking care of people, both internally and externally, the way they need to be taken care of. And so now, yeah. You're basically in this is the way we've always done it. No, it isn't actually. It's not the way we've always done it. We did a lot differently for a long time. You just haven't been taught by anybody. You didn't go to school to learn from anybody. You didn't go into residency and learn from anybody that was from that era that was able to put their arm around you and go, look, I know the challenges that you're facing right now, but here's the workarounds, right? It's no, this is how we do it. This is the straight line, how whatever silo they fall into, this is what we do. This is the protocol. This is how we handle it, and here we are.
Yeah, it's scary. It's insane to me. It just doesn't make sense at all. What peptides are a hot topic everywhere in this country now. What do you think? They've been around forever. So what do you think the reason was? How long have you known about peptides, and what do you think the reason is that they're coming around now, and why we haven't heard about them previously to now?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, I was introduced to peptides. So you know, you mentioned your own TRT experience. I've been very public about mine on a few other podcasts, including my own, just kind of the challenges that I went through in my own health and wellness, and where the TRT component started to fall into place for me, and the things I had to go through. I won't bore anybody with that story, but at that time when I was getting straightened out, and having to reevaluate my health and fitness and how I was approaching things, and TRT was a part of that. And had it not been, I don't know where I would be, quite frankly. It was a hugely powerful time for me, and in a learning process, and like the term straighten myself out was, and this was pre-COVID. So thank God, because if it hadn't been, I don't know what I would have done, because things have changed tremendously even since on how those things are handled, but it has evolved. And yes, so peptides have been around forever. I mean, you think insulin's peptide,
Yep.
right? Chains of amino acids that basically are signalers that switch certain things on or tell the body to switch certain things on, right? And so they've been around for a ton of time. And why haven't they been? Why haven't people understood or known more about them? Well, it's just like anything else. When the media gets a handle on something and there's something to sell, right, they're going to sell it all day long. And so that's what you're seeing. You're just seeing everybody's talking about it. And it's like anything else, man. Like, there's good stuff out there, there's bad stuff, and there's really horrific stuff out there at every level on peptides. I do not claim to be an expert, but I've had my own personal experiences with it. I've been in the industry a long time, and I have the good fortune of being, you know, acquainted with some very, very, very smart people that I've worked with and around peptides for a long time. From the like the medical profession, also the sports performance profession. Why haven't you heard about them? Because there wasn't money to be made on it until now, and that money is coming from a few different areas, but it's mostly coming from the consumer, because they are getting this information on something that could be it could help them, right? Or it could boost performance in some way. It could help with their aesthetics. It could help with their longevity. So if you've broken it down into those three things, anytime there's anything out there that's going to improve aesthetics, performance, or longevity, there's a market for that, right? And so right now, that's why you're hearing so much about peptides. The real reason you didn't hear about them before is because there wasn't much money in it, because they are amino acid chains and you cannot patent an amino acid chain. However, there are companies out there that are trying to do that right now. And more what they're trying to patent is the delivery systems on those aminos, right? Or those amino acid chains, or those peptides. Companies like Eli Lilly, and you've heard about, Mounjaro and Wegovy, and, all the GLP-1 stuff that's going on out there. The other part of it is because of the GLP-1, stuff that's happening. It's the new drug, right? So to speak. And the supply and the demand is there. So, because of that, now you're looking at FDA approvals coming in on these things, and they're on these drugs, because they are very effective at a lot of different levels. There's a lot of good things coming out of there. There's also a lot of bad things. Like anything, there's two sides to every coin. But you're starting to see, the big pharma start to try to monopolize this stuff. And as a result, it's getting even more attention, because if the FDA approves it, then it must be good, right? We learned that in COVID. Like COVID was,
Yeah.
so you got the FDA that, and the government that's now involved with the peptide stuff, which is just giving it even that much more steam, behind the narratives that are happening there. And so I think they've been around for a long time. These are not new. What's new is the availability, the accessibility, but more specifically the awareness to these things. But with anytime that happens, particularly at the intensity and the trajectory that it's happened in the last few years, there's a lot of misinformation and ridiculous expectations that are out there about these things, and it opens up the gray market, and there's always issues with that. And so there's a lot to talk about, on that end, and we're going to learn a lot more about it. But the reality of it is, we know a lot about this stuff. We know a lot about peptides, but just like anything else, again, when there's something to sell, somebody's going to try to find their new spin on it and create some new peptide that does this new thing. And that's part of the problem, is there's so many of them out there. People are confused or not informed, or the worst part is like the over self-confidence or the audacity that people have, that they think they know more than they do about stuff. And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm definitely not an expert. I know a few things because I've seen a few things, but I'm not an expert on any of it. I just, I try to, if people ask me questions, I give them what I know, but I also say I am not the expert. There's places you could go to find out more about it. But at the end of the day, it's still a very cloudy, murky world out there on the peptide front.
Yeah, the GLP-1s or whatever they are always scare me. I just feel like something that's causing your body to lose that much mass in such a short period of time. I don't know. Long term, I just don't think it could be that good for you. But that's just my opinion. I don't know.
Everybody wants a study, right? Everybody wants a validated, randomized control study on this stuff, and we're seeing those. Like, we're starting to see more and more of that again. And when there's money behind it, like, you're going to start seeing a lot more finance being put into these types of things happening, and so we're seeing stuff. And so here's my opinion on the GLP-1 thing in terms of what you said about it. Looks a little scary that people are losing this much weight in this amount of time. And I would agree with you. And that, when they really started going nutballs about 2 years ago, I actually sat down at the end of last year with my crew and did a podcast on, we kind of made some predictions. So far, all of them have come true. Wow. Or all of them have been sort of validated. But here's what I will tell you about that weight loss. Like, a lot of this, like this muscle weight wasting, sarcopenia, And, as we start to work into, the low bone density issues that the people are facing, this is not the drug doing this. Like, the drug is doing what it's supposed to do, right? And it works at a few different levels, and depending on which one you have, they work a little bit differently. But most of those issues are lifestyle. Like, if you are the answer to what should be happening with, in this, again, my opinion, what should be happening with the prescription of these medications or these pharmaceuticals now is there should also come a prescription of nutrition or dietary coaching or like success coaching at some level, as well as a resistance training prescription. Because if we're doing those two things, or at least we're educating people better, if they're eating properly and they are resistance training, you can mitigate most of what's going on there. There are some other things that are happening, gut issues. There's some questions about like what's happening cognitively with some of this stuff, but a lot of the dots could likely be connected there to you're not eating very well. You weren't sleeping very well to begin with. You weren't eating very well to begin with, right? You're eating like a trash panda to begin with, and now you're just eating less, right? You weren't sleeping well because you're eating like a trash panda, and you probably weren't exercising. And what did that look like? What did the exercise look like? We know the resistance training can and will not necessarily stop you from losing muscle mass, because if you're not eating enough and you're burning more calories than you're consuming, you're going to lose some weight. So how do you mitigate that? You make sure you get on a solid, your exercise program should be rooted in strength training. And if you're doing that properly and applying those basic fundamentals, and concepts appropriately, constantly progressing those in an appropriate way, a lot of that stuff can likely be avoided. Now, we don't have a long-term study on any of that, but that's what the shorter term studies and more of the recent research that's coming out is showing us. So it's not the drug that's causing that problem. We should be more scared about how we're onboarding the drug, right? And what state are we doing that in? And what are the things that we are doing to mitigate the downstream negative impacts of that, which start way before you're even on the drug. So if you're going to give somebody that drug, you need to be giving them some proper advice, and that isn't happening. At least give them advice, right? If it's not a prescription, and that's not happening. It's just not. Like, dozens of people out here that have found their way into some type of a GLP-1, whether it's from the gray market or whether it's from a doctor. And I've seen all the things that you read about, right? Good, bad, and indifferent. All of it at this point. That part has been scary at how fast it happened, right?
No, I agree.
It's pretty remarkable, actually.
No, yeah, I think, I don't know how, I think as society, we always try to look for that quick fix of whatever, we want to look this way but there's no quick fix to any of it, no matter what. Like, quick fix to lose weight, sure, but there's going to be ramifications in my mind eventually at some point where, yeah, you might lose all this weight, but then if you don't, I don't know, you're not going to be happy with yourself after the fact if you're not working out and you're not eating and I didn't even think about the bone density aspect of it, but yeah.
It's a big one, particularly in the females. But particularly, I mean, we've seen it here. So I have seen the morbidly obese client who has really benefited by this, right? Really benefited by this, because at some level it's kind of a life jacket. And I look at it that for some people, the problem with the GLP-1s is as soon as you go off of them, the cravings, like the cognitive things that kind of happen there and the hormonal things that happen, because you're affecting, I try to, like, in general speak, like, anytime you're trying to impact a system, whether that's a cardiovascular system, muscular system, or you're impacting something like from the endocrine system level, which is what the GLP-1 does, right? You're also going to impact other systems. It's an integrated system, right? Nothing works in isolation. So there's downstream effects and upstream effects from all of it. And so I think, like, going back to the life jacket analogy, I think for some people, like, it's a good idea, like, because if you're that overweight, right, and you are that unhealthy, just exercising can be painful. Yeah. Right. And that's just one thing. There's an emotional component there. There's a lot of things that go into this without getting into the rabbit hole on it. But I think, getting some momentum going and having, and momentum is a very powerful thing. And it's, whether it's people want to call it motivation or self-control or whatever else, that's talking to it at a very, very high level. There are a lot of downstream effects from getting to that point of unhealthiness, and maybe the life jacket is the GLP-1 is the right thing to get somebody on the right start. And I've seen that be very effective for some people, where it's just gotten them kind of through that toughest part, and where they're losing weight, so they're able to move more. Right, they're recovering better. They're building strength, they're building endurance, they're building cardiovascular capacity, and that allows them to do more, and that makes them feel better about themselves psychologically and emotionally. And they're finding habits and they're finding routines that they weren't in before, and it's easier for them to get through to the next day, and then the next day, and then the next week, and then the next month. And that's not a motivation thing. I don't want to call it that. It's just like, hey, we're changing some things physiologically that are enabling this person to do more, that allows them to get a little further down the road. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But there's another side of it where people are like, oh, I got extra 10 pounds to lose. Give me the easy button. There's, to your point, there's no easy button. Like, there's work that needs to be done, and it really isn't that complicated. People are trying to overcomplicate it all the time. It's not that complicated. Like, there's some basic things, and if you just focused on those basic fundamentals, I think people would have a lot more success without the drug. So,
last thing about peptides, what's your opinion on like the BCP 157, the TB 500, or like the tesamorelin, MOTS-C, that realm of the peptide?
Yeah, those are all very common questions, I get, or I field, or things that I read about it and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the FDA right now with trying to get several of the ones that you just said approved, because they're recognizing there is value there. And so going back to the 10 years ago, there were a lot of very smart people, right, that didn't work for pharmaceutical companies, and some that did, that understood how these things work, right? And again, some of it's gotten wildly out of control and been miscommunicated, and again, people setting expectations around things. But here's the deal, like with some of the ones that you just talked about, like BPC or TB 500. If you take and sort of compare like what was happening with like anabolic steroids, and even like TRT might even be like testosterone replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy, and you look at that and you go back 20 years or even 10 years ago, a lot of things were being said about those things that were, there were concerns, right? There weren't a lot of studies. There weren't a lot of long-term, again, randomized control studies where you could say definitively whether something was safe or it wasn't safe, or how much was too much versus how much is enough. Like, we're just not doing those studies. But there's always a group of people out there that are doing those quote unquote studies anyway, right? And whether that's happening in a lab and it's not being sanctioned or whatever, it's the Russians, right, that are doing it with their athletes, or the East Germans back in the 70s, in the early 80s, that kind of thing. They're figuring this stuff out. And so there's a lot of knowledge that's out there about it. It's just not been validated by whoever's been wanded gets to validate this thing, whatever it is. And so I'll tell you, like with the BPC 157, TB 500, a lot of that has already happened. It's just now we're at a point where it's like, okay, these guys are saying this. There's enough smart people talking about it with regard to how these things can possibly impact things. Again, it's never one thing. There's a lot of things that go into this. Maybe we should start studying it. And so you're starting to see some funding going into the studying. And I think a lot more of that is going into like, well, okay, because so if it can get approved by the FDA, that means it can be prescribed. And which means if you're making a prescription, it needs to be purchased from somebody, and we can make a lot of money doing this, right? If we can be the supplier. The question was about my opinions on those things. Yeah, man, I think there's a lot of promise. I think there's a lot of good things coming out of like the BPC and the TB conversation, and the things that people are the reported benefits, as well as I think there's quite a bit of validated information now, and you're going to continue to see more and more of it come out. Yeah, the Semerelin, the Ipamorelins, the CJC 1295s, the Tesamorelins, same there. The Semerelin was something that was introduced to me 10 years ago. Wow. And since then it's been, now you're seeing like, again, like the Tesamorelins and the Ipamorelins come out, and they function a little bit differently, but towards the same, they kind of work some of the similar pathways, some more and some less than others. And again, we know a lot about that stuff, but there's also this concept of individuality, right? So like, how does it impact the individual, based on their current state, their previous state, and how are they handling their their lifestyle right now? And those are questions that probably aren't ever really going to be answered, but I think those have a lot to do with it. Like, again, you mentioned it, like reaching for the magic bullet is not the answer. And the questions that I get a lot of times are like, I'm like, hold on, pump the brakes, dude. Like, how many times have you worked out in the last month? Well, whatever. Or like, let's talk about your nutrition. Do you know how many calories you're intaking right now? Well, no, I don't really track. Okay, well, how about this? Are you paying attention to how much protein, carbohydrate, and fat you're getting? It's the same question, just asked differently, right? Well, no, I know I get enough protein. Cool, how much? Well, there's a total lack of awareness of the basic fundamental. How much sleep are you getting per night? What is your recovery what are your recovery protocols look like? How are you dealing with external and internal stresses that you're being impacted? What is your job? What is your lifestyle? What's going on in your family right now? All those questions need to be thoroughly thought through, I think, before you're reaching for things like peptides. However, I've seen some people that, again, eat like raccoons, work out like idiots, are completely overstressed, drink like fish, whatever, and utilize peptides and have good results. It's just like, it's the same with the TRT, like, you're going to get some type of result from that, but what is the maximum benefit? What is the percentage of your total success? What percentage is going to be dictated by, what percentage of that success is going to be dictated by that peptide or that, that hormone that you're using or something else? Let's answer those other questions first. And it's not a conversation most people want to have because that's work. It's not, it's not, reconstituting a little powder in a little vial and sticking it in your, sticking it in you a few times a week.
Right. No, I'm just fascinated by the whole peptide world and just the amount of coverage it's getting, which is interesting to me just because it's been around for so long, and I just don't understand why. Like, but that makes more sense. That
there's a lot of commerce, man. There's a lot of commerce. The gray market is wild right now on that stuff. You get online and you look up peptides, look up one of those that you just mentioned and Google it and see where you can get it. You can get it right now. You can order it today and it'll be on your doorstep in a couple of days. So it's become very accessible to people. So a lot of people are experimenting with it and they're trying it. And I think that's, I don't call it dangerous, but I think at some level it is. Yeah. I don't think that's a super smart way of going about it. Educating yourself on it. And again, like, quote unquote, do your research. The problem with that is it's wild out there. There's not a lot of, unless you're digging through both ends of the good stuff and the bad stuff, and then, doing some real critical thinking about where might this fit in for you, which most people don't want to do. They just want to, it's Sunday and they're feeling fat after Saturday's transgressions at the barbecue or whatever. And they're like, oh, I need that Retatrutide. Let me get on and see where I can find that. And it shows up a couple days later and you stick that stuff in you. Yeah, you start losing some weight. Well, then that was the right answer, right? Like, you did the right thing. Like, you got the immediate gratification, and it happens pretty quick, right? When you start using the stuff like that, like GLP-1s particularly, it's almost an immediate result. So that's driving it.
Well, I appreciate you joining me today. We're almost at 2 hours. I could keep talking to you forever, so I don't want to keep you to yeah, it's almost 2 hours.
I don't even know what I said. I don't know. I hope this was okay.
It was great. We end every podcast with one question, man. We teach for a company called Justice Academy. What is your definition of justice?
Dude, I didn't see this one coming. Like, I think, what's the root of that? The root of justice is like what's right and wrong, right? And that, obviously, there's a lot of variability in that for people. And I think, if you're rooting things in morals and ethics, for me, I think there's justice is not justice isn't the same as revenge. But if you do wrong somebody, or you violate a principle or a law, or a value, whether it's in your community, your tribe, or, in the state that you live in, your city, or whatever else, there needs to be a consequence, right, to that. And so whether that's being served up by your community or your tribe, or whether that's being served up by a magistrate or a judge, or, an officer who's making an arrest based on, evidence that's there, probable cause, and all of those kind of things. There has to be a carrot and a stick. So I think with justice, it's like getting the stick end or the carrot end, whichever side you might fall on there. And I think that's important. I think people's and that's not rooted in like an emotional state, like how am I feeling about something. Like what is right and what is wrong, I think is largely clearly defined in a lot of cases. And again, in a lot of it's been codified, like in a law. Well, we've decided as a society, we somewhere we voted on it, or somebody made the decision, not necessarily vote on it, but we've decided, and it's been made clear that this is okay and this isn't okay. And if you do the not okay thing, then there needs to be some justice in having that righted in whatever way that is. And so whether that's a fine, it's jail time, or whether that's an apology or some other type of consequence, justice to me is like, did that get served up properly? And again, for me, it's not like you should have to pay this ultimate price, but there should be a price paid for not doing the right thing. So if you can't manage that internally, personally, and somebody else has to do it for you, and justice needs to be served up by somebody else in some kind of way, to me, that's kind of what justice is. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I just talked in a circle, but at the same time, I don't know, dude, what's your definition of it? Like, help me out here.
No, I like what you said, because it shouldn't be revenge or vengeance or whatever you worded it, but like the Lady of Justice is blind for that reason. And it's because it doesn't matter who's on this end or that end. It's the society has decided this is a crime and this is the punishment. And she doesn't base it on her emotions or anything else. It's strictly black and white in the law. If you did this crime, you this is your time that you have to do, or whatever your punishment may do.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. You look at scales of justice, or I think that's how it's termed. Yeah, I think about you got me really thinking about this. Like, I think I reflect on my own life and where did I deserve, to be penalized for the wrongs that I've done, because I'm not a perfect man by any stretch. And for me, like a lot of that time, I think like whether it might not have been in the moment, but later, like the justice that got served was like the guilt that I felt, or the apology that I had to make, or whatever else. And a lot of it, I think, a lot of it starts there for me. But I've also not wronged people in a way that I'll go to the grave with regretting for the rest of my life. Like if I felt like I did that, I would try to make it right somehow. I'm sure I've done things that I'm unaware of, because I'm just an idiot. But at the same time, yeah, man, I think there's got to be a carrot and a stick, dude. There has to be a punishment for the crime, and punishment that's a wide and varied thing, depending on what those crimes are. But yeah, that said, like, I'm super stoked with what you're doing with the Justice Academy. I heard you guys are doing round 2 this year, or next year. So
yeah, 2027. Appreciate that, man. It's
where's it going to be? Where's it going to be?
Myrtle Beach.
Oh, nice. That's a good venue.
I mean, they love the police there, and the department itself and departments in that area have been overwhelmingly supportive from admin down. So they're willing to kind of help us out going forward. And
sweet.
So yeah, I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can do as good a job explaining or getting more answers to that question from people. And I'm gonna have to listen to more of the ends of your podcast to find out what people are saying about this, seeing if I'm even in the same ballpark.
You definitely are, and I think it was a good answer. The reason I like it is just because, depending on where you come from, well, sometimes I have podcasts with people that committed crimes and people that are cops and people that have never done anything wrong, and it's just to see the different wide variety. Kind of all centers around the same thing, but the way that the verbiage comes out is interesting at times. But I think your answer is perfect, man.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, without it, we're going to wind up in a very, very tough place. I think we're seeing I think we're seeing the consequences of that kind of globally. Like, if there isn't any of that, like, it gets the place gets a little out of control.
That's
we're currently there. I try not to get too frustrated about it. Control what I can control. Be responsible to the things I can be responsible to. But
same here.
It's wild times. Wild times.
I never thought. Yeah, it is wild times.
If you can figure out a way for me to get justice for the shit that I had to go through back in COVID, you let me know, because I feel like I'm owed something there. I do feel like I was wronged there in several different ways, and I would like to get some justice there in some way. And somehow I don't feel like I'm ever going to get that, so I'm just going to have to get over it.
Well, I didn't want to dive down that topic, but I was like, I just almost feel like at some point, the government would have to do something to all these businesses, and something that, based on the outcome of it and the amount of money that was lost, amount of livelihoods and all this other thing, and I don't know, but I didn't want to dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to, let's just say this, I was able to manage my reputation. I think I kept that intact the best I could, for the things that I can control there. That I'm not worried about. Emotionally, again, there's probably a little anger management there. That's my responsibility to manage. Nobody else can fix that for me. I don't need justice for that. Somebody owes me a lot of damn money. Somebody owes me a lot of damn money, and I would feel a little bit better if I had some justice around that. So if anybody's listening out there that has an idea on how to get that done, you hit me up.
Awesome, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's always good talking to you. It's never enough. To be honest, I can't believe we've gone 2 hours. Thanks for having me. I'm always grateful for anybody that gives me their time, gets me out of my box and my bubble here to chat about other things and ask me questions. It's great sitting on the other side of the mic and being able to answer rather than ask. And look, man, if there's anything I could do for you and your team and the stuff that you're doing out there, never hesitate to ask, man. I really enjoy the message that you put out, on social media. And I think you've come across as a very level-headed, well thought out and articulate dude who's done some things for a long time and could have a very different take on, the things that you do and the stuff that you talk about. And I always really enjoy and appreciate it. It's very objective and well-grounded. And I think the world needs more of that. So I just encourage you, freaking keep doing it. I know it's a grind. I know it's a grind. So it's time consuming. It takes a lot of energy and it even costs money. So, I just appreciate what you're putting out, man. Keep doing that. Cause I love what I see and it's very helpful for me. It's been very valuable.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. I don't come from the industry. We like to bust each other's balls, so I don't take compliments the best, but I do appreciate it, man.
You got it. My pleasure.
Knowledge is power.